Hey everyone, if you're watching this particular set of instructions, you must be taking the AP language exam in just over a week. Alright, so just as a reminder, we are not holding official class May 11th or May 18th. That was at the instructions of the district. Nonetheless, for both this week's session and next week's session, I have some exam-related material and steps that I really hope you will at least take a look at to make sure you're prepared, especially things that are related specifically to how the exam is being administered this year, like the exam demo and the exam checklist and things like that. Okay, so let's take a look at how you can access the enrichment material for this week. If you go to our Google Classroom and go to classwork, and on the left, you will see 511. Okay, so here's just a reminder post that we don't have official class, but on the distance learning schedule, there is enrichment material. So the distance learning schedule is right beneath that post. If you click on it, it'll take you to everything that you need. So let's take a look at the suggestions for May 11th. Okay, so our focus for this week has sort of choose your own adventure style, integration of evidence into the rhetorical analysis essay, that sort of illustrious and mysterious row C point. Or if you feel like you really tend to notice ethos, pathos, and logos and you want to know how to analyze it without driving the AP readers who score your essay totally nuts, I've offered that as a focus as well. You'll notice that I've suggested or. I really don't want to overburden you here. I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know what's going on with your other classes. So I've suggested that you do a gut check and think about what you need to work on most. So for this assignment, I recommend choosing one. But of course, if you would like, you can engage with any and all topics and videos for further review. So that's our first focus. And our second focus is the exam day demo produced by College Board. I've also suggested that you keep attempting the practice free response questions on on College Board My AP. I've assigned a handful of these and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Okay? So, for our first focus, you'll see I've linked all of the videos here. These all go to tutorials produced by the College Board.
Go back to the passage and find specific examples that reflect or capture.
Hi guys, that was me.
Alright, so Munchkin alert.
I already brushed my teeth.
Okay, boo boo, thanks. Alright, Munchkin alert. Sorry, it is what it is. Alright, so we are going to take a look at the free response questions that have been assigned for you guys. Okay? Alright, sorry, here we go. I know your screen looks different because you're a student, so I know it's going to look different here. Alright. Here's what you guys are actually looking for when you log in. Alright, you can tell that it's a challenge to find all of these particular items. So bear with me for just 1 second. Okay, you guys will see this right away when you log in under your assignments. So it's going to be different for you. So I don't think you're going to have to do as many clicks as I just did. And I know I turned off my camera, or I think I turned off my camera for a moment, just to make sure I'm not blocking any of the page. I have created what they call a quiz, and it has a number of recommended passages. This is the same for each class. If you click into this, you're going to basically see a whole bunch of free response questions. And it's set up like a quiz because that's just how the website makes you do it. It's not a quiz, okay? It's literally just a collection of a number of practice questions. And you can go in there and you can choose any of the practice ones that you want to work with, okay? And I do recommend choose any of them. Now, let's see if it will let me show you a number of the specific passages, just because I do have a couple I recommend that you take a shot at. Okay, so you'll see that when you open it up, there's 10 questions. That means there's 10 practice passages. Let's click through these together just briefly, because I do recommend that you at least read through a couple of weird ones. So we have been in situations where we've seen lots of speeches. You guys have seen so many speeches and you've analyzed them and you've done a good job. But sometimes College Board does weird things, and I would like you to at least have seen some of their weird things, okay? So we're going to walk through the prompts of these 10 speeches. We've got a speech by a journalist. In the speech, here's what she does. She criticizes the American press. And in a well-developed essay, you're analyzing how she uses the following part of her speech to prepare the audience for her message. Notice how specific that prompt is. How does she use what follows to prepare her audience? Okay? Let's look at the next one. This one's much more familiar to us. We have a speech. We know when and where. We are writing an essay that analyzes the methods or the rhetorical choices that Green uses to persuade. And what is he persuading them to do? To join the Union forces. They've actually given you the author's purpose here, which is really helpful. But otherwise, it's a very typical analyze the speech. Next up, I think this one is the most familiar wording. We have a speech or a letter, read it, and write an essay that analyzes how the author uses rhetorical strategies to argue against slavery. Again, we have been given the author's purpose here, which is fantastic. It won't always happen. Sometimes it's going to say, analyze how Banneker uses rhetorical strategies to achieve his purpose. And that's when they're testing your reading skills to know if you can identify the correct purpose. Do you know what the speech or the letter was setting out to do? All right, this is another particular phrase they like. Write an essay where you analyze how the author's style conveys the complexity of her response. So this one would require you to say her response is complex in these ways, and her style helps convey that complexity. So the first thing you'd have to do for this prompt is to figure out, how is her idea complicated? Like, she's not saying something simple. In other words, she's saying something that might seem contradictory or might seem paradoxical. So you have to first hone in on where the idea is complicated, and then explain how her writing makes it possible for her to convey that really nuanced, detailed, complicated idea. So this can be a tough one. So this is one that I would encourage you to at least read through and see if you could walk through in your head. Okay. This is our standard prompt. Write an essay that analyzes the rhetorical choices that the author makes to convey her message. And you've been given what the message is. These are some older prompts, and that's when we tend to see that they tell you what the author's doing. A lot of the newer prompts don't do that. Okay, but otherwise this one's pretty straightforward, and it's of the type that we've seen before. This one is also not terribly new. We're analyzing how the author uses language to do what? To convey a particular idea about lasting memories. So they've actually just focused your analysis here. You can do that. You are completely capable of that. They've just said, hey, we know there's a lot going on in this passage. We want you to focus on the author's ideas about significant memories from the past. This one is straight up and very standard. Analyze the strategies that the author uses to advise. That one's not new, or not particularly surprising. Alright, here's where we get some kind of new and interesting stuff that we actually didn't quite get to in class. We have a prologue here, a prologue from a novel. So they're going to tell you what the prologue does. It gives a basic understanding of the work the author does and why it's important. And they want you to analyze how the author conveys the message that her work is important. The reason I put this one up as practice is because when you read it, it's going to feel like a novel. It's going to feel very conversational. And you can kind of see that again in just the paragraph structures, these like long paragraphs, and then a little snippet, rhetorical questions, description. This is the type of passage where the rhetoric or the devices do not hit you over the head because they feel so natural. This is one where I could see people getting stuck because you're like, I don't really know what devices are in here. So I would encourage you to at least read through this one and see if you could identify what you would analyze. Rhetorical question, the if structure that she often uses, description, example. We've got lots of different sentence lengths down here along with the rhetorical question. Okay, so this one I think provides a tough challenge that I would at least look at if I were you. Next up. Alright guys, satire. They're telling you it's satire, which is great. They might not always do that. So if something sounds extra snarky or extra sarcastic, consider whether it could be satire, especially if it sounds like criticism of something in the public life. In this case, you also have two passages. Each passage satirizes one group of people. Alright? So we've got people first, people matter the most, and we've got environmentalists. The environment matters the most. In the first passage, the people first arguers criticize the environmentalists. And in the second, the environmentalists criticize the people first. But remember, it's satire. Okay? This video is going to reach its limit in just a moment, so I'm going to have to do about 3 or 4 more minutes on one more video. Okay? I apologize for the length, but I want to cover everything. See you in part 2.